Hi, everybody. How you doing? My name is Ryan Anderson, and I'm the Associate Dean of Business and Entrepreneurship here at Mohawk College. Really excited to join you for another one of our snackable sessions. We have an absolutely phenomenal success story with us today. Nikki Morrison is one of our e-co-op students who's had a long career, believe it or not, for being so young and what she's been doing. And she's going to talk to you today about our business. But I really want you to focus on how diverse a lot of what she has been doing. So it's a fantastic time for us to sit and talk about someone that we can't wait to see absolutely explode in her career as she moves forward. So Nikki, without any further ado, I'd love to pass over to you to tell our audience about you, what you're up to, and where you've been too.
All right. Thank you so much, Ryan. I'm so happy to be here. First thing entrepreneurs can try to do in their lives is create a pitch. So here's mine. I'm Nikki. I'm a small business owner in professional photography for 10 years. And I graduated with psychology, and now I'm venturing into technology as an electrical student to design and create technology that contributes to capturing pollution, plastic pollution in our environments. That's a little bit about myself.
So from photography to pollution, that's really cool. So can you talk to us a little bit about your journey, and A, getting started as an entrepreneur in the photography side, and B, realizing that there's something that you can fill a market with in regards to into pollution in the environment?
For sure. My experience with entrepreneurship goes even further back beyond photography. When I was 10 years old, I started a campaign called Gen Mix, which was generational mix, and it was to foster more relationships with diverse backgrounds. I felt that kids hung out with kids, and then adults hung out with adults, and if we could just kind of like mix the two together, have our elders and kids all kind of get into a generational mix, it would have had better benefits. And there was a Smiling Toronto campaign there. And then I always had a camera in my hand. So Facebook and MySpace really fostered the creativity and expertise to develop professional digital media. Word got around that I was good at what I do, and I had the documentation to prove it. People liked what I was putting on the internet. And so they would come to me with their needs for digital media. After that, I incorporated my business so I could legitimately serve people, and I wanted to do more. So I started doing corporate responsibilities where I would host beach cleanups on the shoreline with the Great Canadian Shoreline Company. And I also gave back some of the proceeds that I would raise to a charity that my client was passionate about. So there was the ocean cleanup, there's Save Our Scruffs, and there was Saving Lebanon with the Beirut explosion. And I also noticed that the microplastics on our shorelines were an element of picking up pollution we couldn't deal with. We can pick up water bottles, we can pick up, litter buds, but when it gets really small, it hides under the sand. And I wanted to create a solution that would capture these nurdles and microplastics, and in a way that would scale it large so that children, teenagers, adults, they could all be enabled to do it. And it wasn't just on the backs of an engineer to mobilize these devices that in modern society are capable of doing.
It's interesting because when you and I first met, I learned about nurdles and I had no clue whatsoever. Can you give us a bit of a 30-second sort of explanation of what they are, where they're found, and what your business is trying to do?
Absolutely. I am also trying to raise awareness about them, so I appreciate the question tenfold. And so nurdles are pre-production microplastics that are used to melt down into single-use plastics. So when you buy a water bottle, when you buy a pen, when you buy a plastic bag, what those items look like before they become a bag and a pen and a bottle is a nurdle. And so what people often call them, they think they look like pebbles or stones, or they're just little circular pieces that are, the size of the tip of your nail. And they have washed ashore by the billions of trillions, and they are in our waterways en masse.
And it again, it's been so diverse, hasn't it? From where you started to where you're going now.
Yes.
What's been the biggest challenge in making that shift for you?
So I was pretty happy as a photographer and retail worker. I began starting to see cracks in the economy because I was studying Ray Dalio, and he kept putting out questions that I would ask myself, what is going to make the consumer stop? And I didn't know, but it just happened to be a pandemic. And so I acted before that in order to protect myself, because I could still work retail photography in school. But once the consumers stopped, it was only my prototype in school that I could do. I could not do photography because my services were canceled. I could not do retail because those services were canceled. So that's a really big challenge as an entrepreneur. You have to look out for black swan events that you have no control over, but is going to seriously impact your quality of life.
It's interesting. We've seen that in a different way in regards to e-commerce right now. In that a lot of stores and a lot of businesses did not have a e-commerce presence when COVID hit, and it was something that to many entrepreneurs is seen as either being it's almost a hassle in a way. How do I learn to have a website? What do I do with something like Shopify or something that enables us to do business online? COVID hit, there wasn't availability for someone to visit your store or for you to go into them. And now all of a sudden they've had to almost force feed and force learn something like e-commerce. And I think the lesson from what you said and the lesson from what we're seeing right now at the center is you can't predict a pandemic, and you can't predict something that's going to have a drastic change to your business. But you can be as prepared as you possibly can by arming yourself with knowledge, arming yourself with what we call proactive business moves. Something to go and say, if I had to pivot today, how would I do it? Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't meet enough people who think on those terms.
Yeah, no, it's something that I think, we're even learning on our education side too, in that crisis versus opportunity, right? And there is an opportunity for you to diversify when something does not go the way that you thought it would do. And that's something that I think that, eventually I hope through all this we'll really learn. It really will be. So, let's talk a bit about failure. And and you are a 1,000% success story in so many things that you've done, but success only happens after you screwed up, and success only happens after you failed. Is there a time when you had to step back and go and say, "Yeesh, I shouldn't have done that," and I did fail, and when was that, and what did you learn?
Um,
It looks
so
like you're choosing from a couple, doesn't it, Nick?
it's the line between wanting to be fully transparent and then you're like, oh, but I'll shape it to success. And I'm going to choose the fully transparent side because I've always prided myself on being an open book. But I could venomously also argue that what I've done is a failure. The reason why I went back to school was because I graduated university, but I no longer wanted to be the psychologist I thought I wanted to be. And I moved into electrical because it has a stronger market and scalable opportunity than photography did. And so you're starting to navigate these different questions through your growth, where like as a 17-year-old going to university, I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. I guess I'll be a psychologist. And then in the motions of it, you really feel the gravity of those case studies. And you're like, you know what, maybe I'm going to put this down and look somewhere else. And I started my opportunities with Surge because I didn't get a formal co-op with Schneider Electric. I was fully failed in being accepted as a co-op student. So I looked for other opportunities. And at the end of the day, I looked at entrepreneurship and I think to myself, it's always been there for me. When other people didn't give me the opportunities to, I gave them to myself. When my employer didn't see me beyond minimum wage, I made $50 an hour through my business in photography. When, Schneider Electric turned me down, I said, you know what? I'm going to go create my own prototype with Natalie Reed instead. And I had a wicked time doing it. So when we endure failure, we still have options, and it's what you do with those options in light of your failures that really makes or breaks you, because it is so easy, and I'm not above it, to look upon our past and say, why didn't I do it differently? Why didn't I do engineering first? Why did I do psychology? I would be so much further along if I did engineering first. And you just got to, but I'm here now, and this is what I'm doing now, and that's okay. And my ability to have psychology behind me has fundamentally changed the way I engage with people, the way I can see people. And so there's an EQ part to my IQ now that I you don't always see in other students, that gives you an edge in your ability to perform and get to know professors. Like my first time at university, I didn't really know any of my professors. The classes were 400 students. Now I'm in a classroom with like 6 other students, and the professor addresses me by my name. And I'm like, this is wildly different, and I can appreciate it because of that contrasting experience.
And I'll tell you, as a, you've been through our eco program, you've been through with Natalie with our surge program. And I remember the very first day that Natalie told me about your venture. And I'll admit, I had to go research it myself, because I didn't know, but I was excited because I knew you'd have hurdles. I was excited because it wasn't perfect. And I was excited because it wasn't something that wouldn't come without you having to pivot and making different decisions that you probably didn't think you'd have to months prior. And I think that's, we're seeing that in the market now, and that a lot of folks who have lost jobs due to COVID are now turning towards entrepreneurship. And there's a historical trend of this. In 2009 and 10, when we had a recession, there was a big spike in people going and saying, you know what? I don't want to get laid off anymore. I don't want to lose my job anymore because of bad economic times. I've always had a passion. I've always had an interest. I'm gonna take that into a business, and we're seeing a ton of that right now too, which is exciting for us. And I know that you sort of, a lot of your business ventures have been born out of your passions, and that is, I think, a fantastic example for the folks out there to take, isn't it? And that, an entrepreneur doesn't equal expert. An entrepreneur equals learning, and an entrepreneur equals failing. And those things are pretty good, and those things are fantastic if you'll learn from those too. So Nikki, we'll end with this one last question that I'd love for you to share with our group out there. What's that one or even 2 tips that you may have for our future entrepreneurs, and flat out really our students as well?
I am so excited, and
I
I
knew
always
you
do
were.
this
Yes.
for everybody I meet. Um, Understand, go down this rabbit hole. Do not stop when it comes to equity. Equity is your friend, and a lot of people don't know what it is, but it is a very powerful concept in business that will leverage and increase your quality of life tenfold if you play your cards right. Um, Being a hybrid in business is also your advantage. So if you're an artist, understand business and you become like an art business savvy. If you're an engineer, understand business, you become an engineer business savvy. But a lot of us tend to become experts and then kind of like isolate ourselves from anything and everything else. If you're just an artist, you're just an artist, and you're just a businessman, you're just a businessman. And then these conversations can't happen because you're just on 2 different planes. And if you're a hybrid in the business industry and you understand equity, nothing is going to stop you. A lot of people get caught up in the concepts of dollars per hour, wage, and equity is the reason why Jeff Bezos exists, why Elon Musk exists. Like that is how you become a millionaire, billionaire. You're not going to work your 9 to 5 and get there. That is a pipe dream, and I'm so sorry. It is entrepreneurship and equity that is really the foundation of how to get there.
I absolutely love it. And that's where entrepreneurship has also changed so much from my past, and in my career and different things is number one, you have to look outside of what your narrow lens is, and that's hard. We all have those sort of scatolments to go and say that that something is that way because I feel comfortable having it be that way. Number one. And number two, the 9 to 5 thing as an entrepreneur, it just doesn't exist, because there are times you're doing it, and especially if you're holding down another job to get your business started too. But those are the really exciting times. Those are the times at 1 a.m. when you figure something out that you just pump your fist and say, yeah, I can do this. And this is something that I am always so enthused by young entrepreneurs like yourself, who are willing to go and take those extra steps, who are willing to go and take a job working in retail or whatever it might be, so that I can go and have the funds to develop my passion, because that in itself is entrepreneurial, and that in itself is being that vision that you get to execute on. So it's those are two fantastic points that I really appreciate you sharing with our audience. I really do. So Nikki, we've had the pleasure of spending a few of these sessions together, and it's been a great little bit for us recording these things today. And I really appreciate your insight. I absolutely love your energy. And most importantly, I really love your venture, and I really love the venture that you're taking right now. Both with the environmental impact on this, but also, awareness. Awareness is something that people probably didn't have much of before. And I really, for the purpose of this discussion, your story is so inspiring, and your story and your successes and your failures really right now are something that our audience can take a lot from. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone out there has enjoyed listening to Nikki today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Have a beautiful day.
You too.